The wind coming off the coast carried a chill that bit through the thin fabric of Elena Ruiz's civilian jacket. The air smelled of salt, diesel, and rain-soaked metal, the scent of a place that had seen more years of service than care. She stepped out of the transport vehicle with nothing more than a duffel bag slung over her shoulder, her hair pulled back neatly, her clothes unremarkable. To the guards at the gate, she looked like any other new recruit, another name on the endless roster of transfers passing through the base. They barely looked at her identification, and she said nothing to correct their assumption. Sometimes silence revealed more than words ever could. Inside, the base buzzed with routine chaos. Voices shouted over each other, engines sputtered in the motor pool, and a tired-looking officer barked orders no one seemed eager to follow. It was the kind of noise that covered up decay, not of structures, but of spirit. Elena took it all in with steady eyes, noting the slack salutes, the scuffed boots, the unspoken resentment. Beneath the chatter, she could almost feel the weight of complacency pressing against the walls. No one here knew that the quiet woman they ignored was, in fact, the new Admiral, a strategist known for turning failing units into models of excellence. She had come to see the truth unfiltered, to witness how people behaved when they thought no one important was watching. And as she walked across the cracked pavement toward the barracks, she smiled faintly at the irony of it all. If you've ever walked into a place where you were underestimated, where people couldn't see what you were capable of, you'll understand her calm. That kind of patience isn't weakness. It's power waiting for the right moment. So stay with her journey. And before we go further, hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Because this story, like all great ones, begins with a quiet arrival no one saw coming. By her second day, it became clear that the base ran less on discipline and more on routine exhaustion. Elena's first assignment wasn't tactical work or communication support. It was cleaning a supply closet stacked with rusted equipment and outdated manuals. When she asked about her actual duties, a lieutenant with a crooked smirk told her, "You'll get to the important stuff once you've proven you can handle a mop." The laughter that followed wasn't cruel in volume, but it was sharp enough to slice through the air. She offered a polite nod and got to work. While her hands scrubbed grime from forgotten tools, her mind cataloged inefficiencies, mislabeled crates, duplicate orders, reports stamped without review. Nothing was running as it should. Every broken process was another clue, evidence of a deeper rot that no inspection report could capture. The officers who gave her orders moved with the swagger of people who had never been challenged. They joked about transfers, budget cuts, and soft recruits who didn't last long. One even nicknamed her transfer bait, as if her only purpose was to make others look competent. Elena said nothing. She didn't need to. Years of command had taught her that silence could be more powerful than confrontation. It unsettled people, especially those used to provoking reactions. So she watched, listened, and remembered. The sergeants complained about supply delays that just happened. The quartermaster signed forms without checking inventories. Coffee breaks stretched into full hours while maintenance logs went untouched. To the rest of them, she looked like a quiet, unremarkable recruit, someone who didn't belong. But beneath that calm expression, every misstep, every careless word was being filed away. She wasn't there to fight for respect. She was there to understand why respect had vanished from this place. There's a certain strength in restraint, isn't there? Watching someone underestimate you while you quietly map the terrain they think they control. It's the kind of patience that unnerves the arrogant, because deep down, they can sense it, authority disguised as humility. Elena wasn't here to blend in. She was here to see what others refused to see. The cracks began to show in the smallest of places, a missing wrench here, a blank signature line there. But to Elena, they weren't small at all. They were patterns, and patterns always led to truth. When she was sent to assist in the armory, she noticed that inventory numbers didn't match the logbooks. The officer in charge, Captain Mendez, waved it off with a laugh. "Paperwork gets messy, kid. Don't lose sleep over it." But Elena's eyes caught something he hadn't expected, a series of requisition forms signed by the same initials, all within minutes of each other. The ink wasn't even dry on the last one. Someone was moving supplies off the books. Later that week, she saw a lieutenant filling fuel canisters long after his shift ended, quietly loading them into a private truck. When she asked if the vehicles were being reassigned, his tone turned sharp. You asked too many questions for someone new. She smiled faintly and walked away, but the encounter told her everything. Corruption had seeped in, and no one dared confront it. It wasn't until she met Corporal James O'Connor that she saw a glimpse of what the base used to be. He was young but worn, the kind of soldier who still polished his boots even when no one cared. One evening, after helping her lift a crate, he muttered, "This place used to mean something." His honesty caught her attention. Over late shifts, they talked quietly about the failures around them. O'Connor wasn't bitter, just disappointed. He still believed the military could be better than what he saw every day. One night, on perimeter patrol, their conversation was interrupted by voices ahead. Two officers, whispering near the storage hangar. Elena motioned for O'Connor to stay quiet. The words floated through the cold air. "If command finds out about those recruits, we're done. Just keep it off the report. Say they slipped during drills." Her stomach tightened. A training accident, covered up. She looked at O'Connor, whose face had gone pale. They both knew what that meant. Back in her quarters, Elena reviewed the day's notes. The missing supplies, falsified reports, the whispered confession. They weren't isolated flaws. They were symptoms of a system that had stopped caring. She studied the chain of command roster, quietly murmuring corrections to herself when the reports used outdated terminology. Every detail mattered, every inconsistency a thread to pull later. For now, she would keep playing her part, the quiet recruit, invisible yet always watching. But somewhere deep inside, the Admiral in her stirred. This wasn't observation anymore, it was preparation. And sooner or later, someone was going to find out just how dangerous quiet competence could be. The confrontation came on a Monday morning, just as the unit gathered in the logistics hall for inspection. The air was thick with the smell of fuel and old paint, and tension hung over the group like fog. Elena had asked a simple question: why a key maintenance report had gone missing from the records. She had noticed the discrepancy days ago and wanted to understand. But Major Harlow, the acting executive officer, wasn't interested in understanding anything. His jaw tightened as he turned toward her, voice cutting through the room like a blade. "You again? You think you can come in here 2 weeks and start questioning my officers?" His laughter was hollow, the kind meant to perform authority rather than earn it. The others laughed with him, uneasy but eager to stay in his good graces. When she didn't answer, his amusement shifted to irritation. "You want something to do, rookie? Go clean out the storage bay. Maybe you'll find your missing report in there, if you can read." A ripple of laughter followed. Elena simply nodded. No argument. No protest. Just quiet acceptance that disarmed everyone. She walked out without another word, the sound of boots on concrete echoing long after the laughter stopped. That afternoon, while she sorted through the dimly lit storage room, she recorded everything. Inventory mismatches, unsecured equipment, maintenance tags with forged initials. Every detail went into a private log, a mosaic of negligence waiting for daylight. Her movements were calm, deliberate, but her silence had changed. It wasn't passive anymore. It was sharpening into purpose. Night fell heavy and humid. As she crossed the courtyard toward her quarters, 3 soldiers stepped from the shadows. Laughter slurred from too many drinks. "Hey, new girl," one said, mock saluting. "Heard you're cleaning the place up. Maybe start with yourself." The others laughed. She tried to walk past, but one reached out, shoving her shoulder. The contact wasn't hard, but it was enough. Before she could react, O'Connor appeared from the corridor, his tone firm. "Low. That's enough." The laughter stopped. The group dispersed, muttering under their breath. Elena stood there for a moment, the adrenaline cold in her veins. She thanked him quietly, then went inside without another word. That night, she opened a secure line on her encrypted device and stared at the screen for a long time before dialing. When the voice on the other end answered, she said only one thing: "It's time." Tomorrow would be different. By dawn, the base was already stirring. Word had spread that a high-ranking admiral from the Pentagon was arriving for inspection, and panic rippled through every corridor. Soldiers who had ignored protocol for months suddenly stood straighter, boots polished, uniforms pressed. Harlow barked orders with newfound enthusiasm, shouting about discipline and presentation, as if authority could be resurrected overnight. Even Sergeant Martinez, who had once rolled her eyes at Elena's paperwork, was frantically typing reports she should have filed weeks ago. For the first time, the base looked alive, but it wasn't out of pride. It was fear. Engines hummed in the distance. A black sedan approached the parade ground, its windows tinted, its arrival pulling every pair of eyes toward the gate. Conversation stopped. The sound of boots striking pavement filled the silence. Harlow straightened his uniform, smoothing his collar, ready to greet the Admiral. When the car door opened, a single figure stepped out. The air changed. Elena Ruiz stood tall in her formal uniform, her rank insignia catching the light, medals resting neatly across her chest. For a brief, electric moment, no one moved. The new recruit, the quiet woman they had mocked, was suddenly unrecognizable, and yet unmistakably her. Murmurs rippled through the ranks. Martinez's face drained of color. Harlow's forced smile faltered, his eyes flicking from her ribbons to her expression, as if searching for a mistake that would make this less real. Elena walked forward with calm precision, every step measured, every movement controlled. She stopped at the podium, let the silence stretch, and then began to speak, not with anger, but with the steady conviction of someone who had earned every ounce of authority she carried. "Good morning," she said evenly. "I want to thank each of you for your service, for the long hours, the sacrifices, and the duties you fulfill every day. But gratitude doesn't excuse complacency." Her gaze swept the formation, pausing on faces that couldn't quite meet hers. This base has lost sight of what discipline means. Leadership has become comfortable. Accountability has become optional. And that ends today. No one dared move. Harlow's jaw tightened, but he stayed silent. "I didn't come here to punish," she continued. "I came to rebuild, not through fear, but through accountability and pride. This uniform," she tapped her chest lightly, "means nothing without integrity beneath it. Every one of you will have a role in restoring that." Her tone softened then, but only slightly. "Those who have acted with honor will find me as an ally. Those who have not," she let the pause hang, "will learn that rank protects no one from responsibility." When she finished, the parade ground was silent, the kind of silence that follows revelation. In that moment, the base understood that the woman they'd overlooked had seen everything. And now, nothing would ever be the same. By the next sunrise, the change had already begun. Elena's first order as commanding officer was simple and absolute. A full audit of logistics, supplies, and training records. Every signature, every report, every unexplained discrepancy would be reviewed. Major Harlow was quietly relieved of duty pending investigation. There was no shouting, no public humiliation, just the quiet, undeniable weight of consequence. Those who had operated in shadows now found the light blinding. At first, the base moved like a body learning to breathe again. The officers walked on eggshells, unsure how far accountability would reach. But then came the unexpected, the calm that follows truth. When the investigation into the training cover-up began, Elena made it clear that this wasn't about punishment alone. It was about rebuilding trust. Those who spoke honestly were protected. Those who lied found themselves reassigned or facing formal charges. Within weeks, fear began to give way to something stronger, respect. O'Connor was the first to be recognized. His quiet integrity had drawn her attention early, and now it became the foundation of her new command culture. She promoted him to staff sergeant, placing him in charge of a new mentorship unit. His surprised smile at the ceremony said everything, the kind of pride that doesn't need words. Elena implemented reforms with precision, an anonymous reporting system that bypassed the chain of command for sensitive issues, a mentorship program pairing senior officers with new recruits, and open briefings that explained not just what policies were, but why they mattered. She walked the halls daily, asking questions, listening without judgment. Soldiers who had once whispered complaints behind closed doors now met her with eye contact and confidence. Weeks passed, and numbers began to tell their own story. Readiness scores climbed. Maintenance delays dropped. Requests were processed on time. The motor pool ran like clockwork. Even the cafeteria buzzed with energy, small jokes, shared laughter, signs of a team rediscovering pride in its work. Elena never mentioned Harlow's name again, nor the chaos that preceded her command. It didn't need to be spoken. The transformation itself was the proof. The base was no longer surviving under fear. It was thriving under trust. And in that quiet success, The Admiral finally saw what she had come here for, not obedience, but belief. 6 months later, the base no longer looked like the place she had first walked into. The air carried a different energy, cleaner, sharper, alive with purpose. Uniforms were crisp, conversations carried confidence instead of complaint, and the sound of boots on gravel marked rhythm instead of routine. Elena watched from the edge of the training field as the new recruits moved in perfect formation, their timing flawless, their focus unwavering. At the front of the line marched O'Connor, voice steady, presence commanding. There was no trace of the hesitant corporal she had first met. Leadership had found him, and he had risen to meet it. Elena stood with her hands behind her back, a quiet pride softening her otherwise formal bearing. Change, she had learned, wasn't built in orders, it was built in people. In her final log entry before departure, she wrote what she'd always known but had only now lived in full. Command isn't about rank. It's about understanding what your people live every day and earning the right to guide them. That evening, as the sun dipped low across the coastline, Elena walked the same cracked path where her journey had begun. The sea wind met her again, familiar but gentler now, as if the base itself exhaled with relief. Soldiers she passed paused to salute her, not out of fear or formality, but out of respect. She returned each salute with a nod, then kept walking toward the horizon, where the sky met the water and the story of leadership met its quiet completion.